Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. We're back this weekend at the world famous Imola circuit as we head towards what I'm sure will be 63 laps of a fascinating race. Joining me as always, G. Nice to see your face for the first time. Good head for radio, bud.
Yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing. We have heads for radio, that's for sure, but we've taken the big giant leap into YouTube territory with recording, and let's see how it goes, mate. Hopefully, we don't off-put any viewers.
Should be good. How are you feeling about this weekend's race, man?
Well, look, I'm happy. Coming into a triple header, which is always exciting. Having a week off from the last race in Miami. So, look, Imola, love the circuit. You know, it's got a little bit of history there, but unfortunately, it's not really conducive to the most exciting racing.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're exactly right there. Potentially Imola's last race. Shame to see a track with so much history leave the calendar. Spectacle-wise, you're right, not conducive to good racing. You know, you look at last year. Last year was predominantly a one-stop race. Pirelli have come here this year with the C6, so the softest compound tyre. So they're obviously trying to maybe induce a little bit more strategy into the race. But, you know, you look at these teams and they're so good at managing tyres. They've tried to introduce a softer compound last week in Miami. If it wasn't for the rain, you know, that would have been a pretty stock standard race. So I'm expecting sort of the same again, probably a one-stop strategy.
Well, the weather's not really throwing up any massive dynamic at the moment. They're forecasting sunny weather on Friday with some cloudy weather on Saturday and Sunday with a chance of rain at 15%. So obviously that might change a little bit later in the week, but looks like it's going to be a dry running race.
Yep, and slightly cooler temperatures too, which you would think might play a little bit more into Red Bull's hands. You know, we've seen them with the issues with the tyre overheating, so might bring them back into play a little bit, but I'm predicting McLaren to still be out front.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, there's been a lot of talk coming out this week about McLaren's brake ducts and the way that they cool the tyres, etc., and helps keep the tyre in the window. So perhaps the cooler temperatures. I mean, they're forecasting a high of 23 degrees, which is, you know, quite mild.
Yeah.
So definitely not hot in any case. So perhaps it's a little bit of an equaliser, but in saying that, I mean, look, I still believe McLaren that's the team to beat. Well, let's start off with Red Bull. It's been a little bit of an interesting week for Red Bull. We saw Max's alter ego, his alternative log-on for iRacing, perhaps. Friends cut some laps at the Nürburgring, which was a little quite exciting for Verstappen fans.
Yeah, old Franz Hermann. Like you mentioned, doing the testing. He owns a GT3 team there. So, and we've already spoken about this at length. We believe he's going to take a year off. And, this sort of only leans itself, I guess, more towards a speculation. Obviously, he's got a little bit of work to do before he can actually race at the Nürburgring.
Well, there's a special procedure that a driver needs to do to qualify for racing there. So Max, being the Formula One world champion, can't just
rock
strut
up and drive.
Yeah. Well, maybe if he used his real name, they may have given him the green light. But since it's friends, they applied the rules to him.
Yeah, I think it's called a DMSB permit. And obviously, you know, you've got to do a certain amount of track days, a certain amount of driving. There's online courses. You know, I don't know too much about it, but I do believe you need that permit before you can go ahead and race. On Red Bull, 400th Grand Prix this weekend. Pretty big weekend for them, I think. Not only is it the 400th Grand Prix, but there's rumblings too, a bit of unhappiness amongst the board at Christian Horner. Supposedly, there's a bit of a review going on, and rumblings that there could be a post-Imola exit there as well.
Yeah, I guess depending on their performance, right? And they are bringing some upgrades, apparently, to Imola. But, I guess it comes down to more about the performance, and we know Red Bull's been a little bit inconsistent this year, but a couple of good results, and then all that talk and chatter possibly disappears. But let's see how they go at Imola and if these rumours have some sort of substance.
The board doesn't seem to be too happy with Christian basically from pre-season testing. And, there's always rumours of unrest going on. So there's a lot playing out behind the scenes. But as far as on track, I still believe the cooler conditions will probably suit Red Bull a little bit. And being a circuit where there's not a lot of overtaking, Max generally gets the job done on Saturday, whereas, a team like McLaren, a few hiccups here and there, they can't really afford to let Max start ahead of him, really.
Yeah, look, we can't write off Max. He's won, I believe, the last 3 Imola Grand Prix.
Yep.
So he's got form there. He knows how to perform there. But yeah, let's see. I think the most important talking point from a Red Bull perspective is more Yuki Tsunoda and how he performs this week. If he can close the gap. Helmut Marko's come out recently in the media and obviously projected a lot of positivity around Yuki Tsunoda. Talking about that he's picked up some points, etc., hit a few Q3s, but the gap between Max and Yuki on pace is still quite large.
Yeah, that's Yuki's goal for this weekend. Obviously, keep it clean. He has to bring in the points, but I think his main goal is to try and narrow that gap a little bit to Max. Look, everyone that gets in the car next to Max, the gap's massive, So, like you said, he's been given the backing of Helmut for the rest of the season. So, now he's just incrementally, I guess, got to try and close that gap.
Yeah, and ultimately, that's the goal for him. But he's got plenty of races left. As long as they give him full backing, I think Yuki will definitely close the gap. How much of the gap? We'll soon find out.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the big news for this week, realistically from a driver perspective, is Franco Colapinto.
Yep.
Unfortunately, our guy Jack Doohan got demoted, which we weren't super happy about. Clearly, the Argentinian fans are celebrating. They've got their guy back. We've talked about how he had a successful introduction into F1 last year, but sort of fell off later on into the season.
Yep.
What's the goal for Franco this week? Because from my point of view, he's clean race.
Yeah.
I'm stating the obvious, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. It's bring the car home in one piece. Like you said, no mistakes. Thing is, he's supposedly been given five races. I think it's going to be a little bit more than that. But if he only has 5 races, he's got to hit the ground running, right? He can't miss a session. He hasn't raced since Abu Dhabi 2024. So that's what,
6 months away?
Yes.
Ago, sorry.
Yeah, 6 months. So he'll probably be a little bit rusty. Just build into the weekend. I'm probably not expecting a great deal from him. I think, Gasly will still outperform him. That car isn't the greatest, but he needs to hit the ground running if he only has that 5 races. He can't afford any mistakes,
Well, there's no better time than coming into a triple header. It's basically just bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
And you just got to get these next 3 weekends done and dusted, clean as possible.
Yeah.
Alpine, I believe, are bringing in a few upgrades for, possibly this week or at least this up through this triple header.
Yeah.
They've shown glimpses over the season of some sort of one-off lap speed.
Yeah.
But race pace, probably not quite there. Do you see Gasly getting in the top 10? Well, let's not discount Colapinto as well, but do you see some points coming for Alpine this weekend?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like you said, 1 lap pace, Gasly's got every chance of making it into Q3, but then come the race, they tend to fall away. So I probably don't have them taking many points if they do take any. And if anyone does take points, I would say it would be Gasly.
So, hometown team, well, one of them at least, Ferrari. Bit of pressure coming into this weekend after Miami. The lack of pace there, and obviously some of the media reports of a little bit of, inter-team disgruntled, we'll just say a disgruntled Hamilton and engineers and Vasseur, and yeah, so a little bit of a mixed bag there. Upgrades possibly I've been talking about for a while. What do they got?
Yeah, home race. Pressure's definitely on. Um, Supposedly at the moment, nothing confirmed yet. It's the side pods and an updated front wing. So obviously, you know, trying to improve the aero balance of the car. We've seen that car's sort of real finicky. The window is so small, like if they have to adjust the ride height just a little bit, it throws them completely out the window. The Hamilton stuff, he came out and basically said like to Vasseur, like, chill out, man. I was being sarcastic. I've said a lot worse to Bono. You know what I mean?
100%, yep.
So again, that's you know Ferrari and Hamilton learning about each other, right?
Clashing personalities, you could say.
Well, they've got to learn. There's only 5 races in this. They've got to learn how to coexist with each other, how each other sort of work. So from that point of view, everyone, we love to talk about the radio messages, which is cool to see. If these upgrades don't work and Ferraris are still on that decline, I feel like a bit of heat's going to come on poor old Fred.
Yeah. No, I agree. And we sort of spoke about this earlier where, he's made the big bold move to bring Hamilton in and things haven't quite worked out quite as planned at the moment. Plenty of time to come and, that can come right. But yeah, if it continues this way, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Ferrari are going to be expecting a big things this weekend. The Tifosi semi-home Grand Prix. Well, it is a home Grand Prix. So it'll be interesting to see where they're at. Because if we go off, say, just last weekend, you would say at the moment, Williams are ahead of them based on performance, right? Pace-wise.
Yeah.
Now, Ferrari really should not be being beaten by Williams.
No, not at all.
In the grand scheme of things, right? So, yeah, hopefully these upgrades they're bringing sort of bring them back up towards the top end of the field. If not, it's going to be interesting to see what happens after Spain. There's definitely going to be some pressure. Like you said, they're bringing the side pods and the front wing possibly this weekend, and then a revised rear suspension in Barcelona. So, I think after Barcelona, then we can make a real judgment of where they really are.
Yeah, I think that will be the big one, the rear suspension and
Yep.
how they get that sorted. So hopefully the engineers and designers have nailed it, because otherwise things aren't going to be looking too good over there.
They should really have a big bag of points, right, coming out of this weekend, realistically. I think Charles is, at the moment, he's the one that can extract the most out of the car on a Sunday. I guess we'll wait and see.
Speaking of the top team, where they really don't have a lot of pressure on them at the moment because they're just performing so well, is McLaren. I mean, what's the news coming out of McLaren? Because we've heard a lot, obviously, about the brake ducts and the cooling there. Naturally, in Barcelona, there's going to be some revision on the front wing flex, which a lot of people are speculating that may affect them. But at this point of time, clear favourites for this weekend. It just comes down to Oscar and Lando.
Yeah, exactly. We'll worry about Barcelona when we get to Barcelona. So it's going to be, like you said, a big story in itself and what it does to the pecking order. But for me, Saturday for McLaren is where it's at. A track that doesn't produce great racing. Yes, there are some overtaking opportunities. Probably looking at a one-stopper. So Saturday is going to be super important. I still think the momentum that Oscar has at the moment is going to be enough, I think, and he's going to carry that momentum into this weekend. And I'm probably expecting Oscar on the top step. Lando and McLaren have both come out this week and sort of said, the front end of the car is probably the weakest point. And for Lando, he feels like he's struggling to sort of attack the braking and the turning on entry. So if they can get that sorted, I'm expecting Lando to be on the podium. I still think Oscar's just got that little bit over Lando at the moment.
Yeah.
He's
No, I
like, I
agree.
mean, he seems to be able to manage the tires better at the moment. Probably a little bit better racecraft. Speed wise, they're exactly the same.
Super, super close.
Yeah,
On
exactly.
like max pace on like a 1 lap, super close.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's those fine little margins that are going to make the difference for McLaren this weekend.
Yep. Now let's move on. Hometown driver, Kimi Antonelli, the only Italian driver out there. Mercedes growing in to the season. That's a feeling I get. They're sort of growing in.
Yeah.
And I think they're pretty excited about some of the upgrades that they'll be bringing. What do you reckon? Kimi podium?
Oh,
Hometown?
it'd be a great story,
Yeah.
especially he's probably gained a little bit of notoriety or hype around his little Netflix thing that he did with Mercedes, the seat.
Yeah.
Um,
And the sprint pole last race
well,
definitely.
exactly like that. That definitely didn't like hinder him at all. He learnt
Yeah.
a massive lesson on what it takes to race at the front with the top guys. I don't think he's going to be on the podium. I think if anyone's going to fight for the podium, it's going to be George. Now that car, man, as we know, has been probably the most consistent car out of the top four teams. Their upgrades, they're hoping to probably gain a few points of aero, which then will lead into helping them with the thermal degradation of the tire. If they can do that, there's no reason George or Kimi could be on the podium. Again, they're going to be bagging a whole bunch of points.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think it'll be another successful weekend. And yeah, it'll be just interesting to see how their upgrades pan out because, yeah, I've just got a feeling that Mercedes they're onto something here, and I just feel there's a lot of positivity around the camp. A little bit like Williams in a way. Now, speaking of Williams, not a lot coming out of the Williams camp this week, but I've been impressed with Albon because my concern with Albon at the start of the season was Sainz is going to come in. He's finally got a teammate that has some pedigree, and I thought Albon was going to crack under the pressure, but it just seems polar opposite.
yeah,
He's
I
just
mean,
stepped it up a gear.
yeah, exactly. When you look at it, it's probably been, yes, granted he's had the car performance, but it's probably been one of his best seasons in Formula One. Having Sainz there, like you mentioned, I think's only elevated his performances. And Williams were probably expecting that too, knowing, bring someone like Sainz in and hopefully push Albon to a new level. And like I said before, man, based on performance, you would probably say they're probably a little bit ahead of Ferrari. So I'm expecting double points this weekend for sure.
So a big bag of points for Williams then.
Yeah, big dirty bag.
Okay, on to Aston Martin. Now, a team that's been struggling pretty much the whole year.
Yep.
We've got Fernando Alonso still on the big donut, so 0 points for Fernando. Bit unlucky, of course. I think there was some points in the bag, Miami sprint race. We know that they're very much forward thinking into 2026, but there are some upgrades coming. And, do we see them challenging for some points, top 10? Can we see a Fernando score a point?
No.
Not much
Unfortunately,
optimism. Not much optimism there for Aston Martin, then, huh?
yeah, no, look, they're struggling big time. Yes, I think they're basically almost at the point where it's 100% focused on 2026. Yes, they have brought updates, or they are bringing updates this weekend, basically aimed more around the aero performance of the car. Alonso's got a bit of extra motivation, with the passing of his long-term trainer, Fabrizio Bora. If they're going to score any points, it's going to take either a really good strategy or someone to make a big mistake in qualifying, which isn't out of the realms of possibility. We've seen that, one of the top boys doesn't get through to Q3, definitely opens the door. But I still don't think they're going to be in the hunt for points.
So basically, you're saying they need some serious luck
Yeah.
to go their way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now on to V-Carb. Now, V-Carb's an interesting one. It's their home race, isn't it? So let's expect some big things from V-Carb. Liam Lawson, come on, mate. Make me happy. Grab some points because you're starting to stress me out a little bit. And there's been a little bit of chatter out there. Juan Pablo Montoya, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, another Formula One driver that has a fair bit to say. Not that I'm discrediting him at all. Like, he's got more experience than me, but, he said you've got the young guy, Arvid Lindblad. Man, I can never pronounce his name.
You got it?
Arvid Lindblad.
Yep, super license, right?
He's super licensed. So he kind of feels like if the performances don't improve, that VCARB might start to look at bringing Lindblad into play.
He's definitely the next off the rank, so to speak. He's definitely there. Yeah, it'll be interesting because I've kind of felt Lawson has, since his return to VCARB, slowly building in. I mean, he's just been quite clumsy.
Yeah, well, Miami was a perfect example of that, right? Yeah, that was a clumsy weekend.
That was, sprint points were in the bag there.
Yeah.
Obviously, unlucky for the feature race qualifying, and then obviously the turn one incident with Jack. So yeah, he's got a lot to prove. I feel the speed is getting back, but he's got a tough teammate in Isaac Hadjar. I mean, that boy can qualify. Yeah. He's got some great one lap speed when he needs to eke it out. He's definitely got some good speed there. So Hadjar obviously performing above expectations, particularly, we always talk about round one formation lap, binning and crying on the side there. Since that point of time, bang, he's on it. So Lawson, he can't waste much more time. I mean, he really needs to nail this triple header and pick up some points, outperform Hadjar as well. So obviously I want him to do that.
Yep.
Just time to deliver, mate. Like it's time to deliver.
Yeah, it's getting to that point, right? He said, pace wise, he's not far off. Like it's come back fairly quickly, but just clumsy weekends, and then you've got Hadjar, man, who's just been lights out pretty much all season, bar Australia, and that's just adding to the pressure and adding to the speculation. Yeah. For Lawson's confidence, these next three races are super important.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't score points, but they're just clean, mistake free, and even team wise for his confidence, there's no issues with the car. Like he had the battery issue in Miami, so that hindered his qualifying. So if he can just sort of get a bit of a roll on where things sort of go his way, I think come sort of after Barcelona heading into the summer break, he should elevate a lot more. Come on, Liam. Come on, bro. Come on. Out here, man. We've lost one already. We don't want to lose another one.
Exactly. Then we'll be down to one, and obviously we're very happy with where Oscar is right now. But definitely don't want to lose another one.
Yeah.
Now on to Haas. Probably one of the teams that's been the most inconsistent. They just seem to be very track specific. I feel Ocon's starting to, sort of take the number one driver role, or at least lead the team. I sort of feel that he's sort of coming to grips with that. Behrman has been great this year from a rookie perspective. Yeah, he's been a bit of a pendulum. He's either sort of like right at the back or he's, in the mix. So he's showing glimpses, well, not glimpses, he's showing enough. He's showing definitely enough potential there. But what do you see with Haas here? Does Imola suit their car, or where are they?
Who knows? Like you said, very track dependent. I think for Haas, really is just about trying to get consistency over multiple circuits rather than just being track dependent. I mean, yes, that's a very obvious thing to say, but it's really what they need to do. I think, like you said, I feel like Ocon's starting to get a handle of the car now, so we should start to see a little bit more out of Ocon. Behrman's definitely showing enough, showing his credentials. Seems to struggle a little bit one lap wise qualifying, but race, he's definitely showing his worth. So, yeah, I don't know. They might be in for a point or two. They might not. But again, you look at that midfield, and this is the thing, right? You've got Alpine, you've got Aston, you've got Haas. You could probably say Williams are above all of them, which they definitely are. So the margins are so small, man, that you really need to have the most consistent car over multiple circuits. And if you can do that, you're definitely going to come out like straight pace. I don't think's the issue. Being consistent
Yeah.
over multiple circuits, that's going to be the big payoff for these lower teams. That's what's going to get you ahead of the rest.
Yeah, well, I mean, it feels like we've been at it for a long time. We're only a quarter of a way through the
Yeah, I
season.
know. It already feels like a long season, eh?
Right? 24 rounds. What are we up to? Round 7. So plenty left in the tank from a racing perspective. Now, you mentioned some of the lower teams. We can't get much lower than this. And it's poor old Stake. What do you see from them? I mean, there's, Sauber's 600th Grand Prix.
Yeah,
So there's probably a little bit to celebrate for them from that perspective.
yeah.
Bortoletto still on no points. One of 3 drivers. Well, one of 4. Colapinto, of course, now coming in. What do we get? What do we get from Stake this week? Same old?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, Sauber's 600 GP is probably going to be the biggest celebration they're going to have all weekend. Again, just trying to close that gap to get into closer to that midfield battle, I think is their aim. They're probably very similar to Aston Martin. They're probably now just full focus on 2026. Hulk's doing, I think, great with what he's got. So on Hulk's side of the garage, you probably can't ask for much more. Bortoletto, man, doing a solid job, I feel like.
Yeah.
And
I feel pretty solid.
Yeah.
I mean, not too many mistakes for a rookie, but it's just underperforming car.
Yeah, so he's not going to set the world on fire, is he? Then that would be interesting to see what he'd be like in the Haas. Swap with someone like Ollie Behrman and just to see where he's truly at, because like you said, that underperforming car, we're not getting a true read.
Yeah.
The only good thing is he can go about his business quietly and build into the rest of the season and build into 2026 when they become Audi.
Pretty good analysis there from you, Mick. Now, what about your predictions?
Ron Burgundy.
How good are these?
Yeah, probably not as good as that, but I feel like Oscar's just on a wave, man, and I think he's going to continue with that. So I'm going to say Oscar P1. Cooler conditions, I think, are going to suit Red Bull. I'm going to say Max is going to put the pressure on, and we'll probably see similar to what we saw in Miami, but roles reversed. I think Oscar will get pole.
Okay.
But I'm going to say Max for second and Lando for third. I feel like it's just not clicking for him yet. But, to win a championship, you've just, those weekends where it doesn't click, you've got to make the most of those weekends. And he's got the car that he can do that with, right? So, when he struggles, like we saw was it Bahrain, right? Had the poor qualifying, but could drive his way back up to get a decent haul of points. They're the weekends that really matter over 24 races.
So
what about yourself?
Well, you're saying Piastri, Verstappen,
Norris.
Okay. I think Max wins this one. I think he's got form there. I think the cooler conditions equalise the cars a little bit, or at least between Red Bull and McLaren. I just think he'll nail Saturday. That's where he'll win it. Oscar in second. And I'm going for the hometown kid, mate. Like Kimi Antonelli.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Look,
I'd love to see it.
It'd be great. It'd be awesome. And it's probably a little bit of redemption for what happened in Miami,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it. But, yeah, that's where we're probably going to disagree on that one.
That's all right. It's all right to disagree. And I'm just going to throw another one out there. Liam Lawson's picking up points this weekend.
Yep, I'll go with you on that one. I'll fingers crossed for Liam. He can have a solid weekend. But, let's see after 63 laps on Sunday. So until then, I guess we'll catch you in the next one.
Yeah, looking forward to it.